Hi, I'm Bernie Bernstein, and this is phase one of our DataStore project for the YU Summer Course 2022.
And I'm Yosef Bordak. Our main goal in creating a data store was essentially to create a REST API. A REST API takes data from a database and displays it onto the front end of a website or platform. The main hurdles that any team experiences in creating a REST API is needing to be able to assume the existence of a database to take data and configure it. The second main hurdle is to need to assume the existence of a front end to display and test that their methods are properly editing and putting and getting data from the database. The way that we addressed the first issue of needing to assume the existence of a database was using Panacci Entity. Panacci Entity essentially simplifies the entire process by converting Java objects into database tables.
So now we're going to run a software called Quarkus. Quarkus allows us to run a web application locally on our computer. Now, one would do this in the terminal by typing the commands maven quarkus dev. Another advantageous feature of Quarkus is allowing the developer to simultaneously run his application and edit his code. And Quarkus will automatically adjust the changes.
So now that we have Quarkus running and the platform's running, we're gonna address the second hurdle that we had, which was needing to assume, well, normally we need to assume the existence of a front end. We don't have a front end. So what we did was we used Postman. Postman allowed us to test that our routes were properly running and that they both put the data that we were interested in putting and was able to edit it and delete it. And Bernie will tell you more about that. But so we're going to head to Postman now.
So Postman is a friendly user interface to run REST API. Now in a REST API, there are four main functions that a person will use, four main methods that one will use when dealing with data in a REST API. And the acronym that's coined is known as CRUD: create, read, update, and delete. Now, when you have web servers communicating with one another through HTTP, you can perform these CRUD operations. HTTP has methods that correlate with the CRUD operations.
So the first method that we used, method that we're going to use is post. So we could see that over here that we choose to use a post method. The first one that we're going to use in our dynamic of groups and users is by just creating a group. So we'll call the group Bernie's group. And you'll see that when we send it, it will create the group. And now Bernie's group is created. The group's ID is 1. The name is Bernie's group, and it has no users because we are yet to create any users. The next task that we can do is creating a few users. So we will create a user named Yosef. We can even add in my last name there, and we'll make my actual email, josephbordak@gmail.com. And now we'll see that if we send, my ID is 2, there's my name and my email, like we put them in. The next method that we can call is a get method on the groups. So if we just do it in general, if we just fetch all of the groups,
in the URL, if we just type in groups, which is the root path to our local application, we can fetch, we can get, in CRUD operations, it's the R, which is read all of the groups that we've placed in our database.
So we see here that we have two groups. We have Bernie's group and we have Yosef's group. Let's say we wanted to specify we only wanted the users in Bernie's group. all we'd have to do is specify in the URL, in the file path or in the route path, Bernie's group's ID number. So we could specify one here, and you'll see that Yosef's group will disappear. And now we're just left with Bernie's group.
So in terms of CRUD operations, the HTTP post is a create, the HTTP get is a read. The next operation we'll perform in HTTP is a put, and that corresponds to the U in CRUD, which is an update. So we're able to update our groups and users fields, their attributes, by using a put and placing the group's ID number that we want to change in the URL path.
And so that's, you can, okay. And that's what we did here. We specify Bernie's group's ID number, which is 3 in the URL in the route path. And then we just change his name from what originally was Bernie's group to Bernie's grand band. And we click send, it will show us that it was changed. And we can even go to the get call and call all of the groups that exist. And we'll see that, oh, I changed Yosef's group instead of Bernie's group. So essentially we changed Yosef's group from Yosef's group to Bernie's grand band.
Perfect. And the
Yeah.
last operation we'll demonstrate is delete. Delete is the D in CRUD, and it is called delete as the HTTP method protocol. And so, as the name implies, we can delete all of our groups and user tables by using this request.
So we'll start by deleting the user Yosef Bordak in Bernie's group. So we'll pass in the delete method, in the delete route path, we'll pass the ID number 1 and then the user ID number for Yosef Bordak, which is 2. And when we click send, it should delete it from the users that exist. I no longer exist in the system. Then we can delete, lastly, we can delete the group. We can delete Bernie's band, Bernie's grand band by passing its URL 3. And when we click send, it should also be gone.
This has been our demonstration and brief explanation of phase 1 of our project DataStore.